So the story begins in 1976 in England, when 9 schoolboys ate some kidney beans that had been soaked but not boiled. And within 1.5 hours, all 9 of them ended up with profuse diarrhoea and vomiting. And some of them had only consumed 4 kidney beans. And further illustrating the toxic potential of kidney beans is a diet containing only 1% kidney beans will kill a rat in 2 weeks. So the problem of uncooked kidney beans was considered so serious in England back in this period that the government started issuing written warning labels on uncooked kidney beans. So then that leaves us with the question, what on earth is in uncooked kidney beans that will do that? So this is a kidney bean plant here. It doesn't have any claws, it can't run away, so it's pretty defenceless. Well, you'd be wrong. It's not at the complete mercy of any caterpillar that wants to come along, because it engages in some very potent chemical warfare. And the chemical warfare that plants use, one of them is called lectins. And in fact, there's over 100 known sources of plant lectins, and many of these are toxic to humans. Lectins can bind to that carbohydrate moiety, and that means lectins can therefore bind to our human cells.
Lectins are another powerful chemical plants produce to protect themselves and are abundant in these foods. They are a protein that binds to carbohydrates that acts as a poison to keep away predators. They are right on top, along with oxalates, as being one of the most toxic chemicals that exist in plants. To understand the kind of damage lectins can cause, you must first understand a little bit about how the digestive system works. The entire digestive tract is a hollow tube from mouth to anus, with the lining of our gut made up of epithelial cells that are tightly joined together through tight junctions and work to absorb nutrients from our food. On top of the epithelial cells are microscopic membranes called microvilli that are coated on top with a fuzzy gel-like layer that is made up of sugars and proteins called the glycocalyx. Because the glycocalyx is made up of sugars, lectins can actually bind to this part of the intestinal barrier, causing damage. This causes the tight junctions to weaken and the epithelial cells to spread apart, causing what's infamously known as leaky gut syndrome. When your gut is leaky, this allows foreign particles to bypass the intestinal barrier and into the bloodstream. The body will initiate an immune response causing inflammation to get rid of these foreign particles. But because lectins can actually bind directly to our cell membranes, the body will end up attacking its own healthy cells, causing an autoimmune response, eventually leading to autoimmune disease. Autoimmune diseases are considered uncurable and are the 3rd most prevalent form of disease in the United States, right behind cancer and heart disease, with about 8% of the population being affected. That means if you suffer from any of these health issues, you likely could have sustained damage from lectins being in your diet. Besides lectins being one of the main contributors, other things like stress, medications, drugs, alcohol, environmental toxins, and poor dietary choices can also contribute to leaky gut. Leaky gut has many symptoms, from simple things like gas, bloating, acne, brain fog, allergies, and sugar cravings, to more pronounced things like anxiety, depression, skin issues like eczema, hormonal issues, headaches, development of certain food intolerances, and autoimmune disorders. More likely than not, your gut is damaged to some degree unless you're eating a super low inflammatory elimination diet like the carnivore diet. Oxidative stress can also contribute to leaky gut, and coincidentally enough, lectins also cause this as a byproduct of destroying the intestinal barrier's cells. So not only can lectins cause leaky gut, but if you already have it, lectins can make it way worse than it needs to be. Eating only 4 raw kidney beans is enough to make you very ill and send you to the hospital. This gives you an idea of the real toxicity of lectins. For kidney beans to even be edible, it's recommended to soak them for at least 5 hours and boil them for at least 10 minutes to reduce the lectins enough just so you don't get sick.
Now, lectins are resistant to cooking. And as well as being heat stable, lectins are often very, very resistant to the normal digestive enzymes that we have lining our gut. And it's to the point where a lot of lectins provide no nutritional value at all. They're often excreted completely unchanged. And often on the way through the intestinal tract, these unchanged lectins can often bind to the walls of our intestine and do significant damage, including killing the cells.
No matter how you cook your food, it's not possible to fully get rid of lectins. There are many different types of them, and most of them are very resistant to cooking. Wheat germ lectins, peanut lectins, nightshade lectins, potato lectins, and soybean lectins are all very heat resistant and will survive cooking, as well as even the digestive enzymes in our stomach, basically traveling through our whole digestive tract unchanged and providing zero nutritional value to our diet. Many fruits, nuts, and seeds are not cooked either and are usually eaten raw. Things like peanuts, sunflower seeds, fruits like melons, pomegranate, and berries, and virtually any other seed that is a food item are all high in lectins. And again, cooking won't completely remove them. Seeds, nuts, and legumes are the most defended part of plants because they are their offspring. This is why they are always very high in lectins. After ingestion, peanut lectins can be detected within the blood after only 30 minutes. It does not take long for these toxins to damage the gut and to get into the bloodstream. Compared to oxalates, lectins tend to have a more immediate reaction. Minor damage done to the tight junctions can be repaired within hours, but more significant damage can take days to weeks to fully heal. When you allow your gut to become leaky over time, the process can then take many months to fully heal, depending on the severity of the damage, all meanwhile allowing foreign particles into the blood, effectively lowering your immune system. Lectins are known for being an anti-nutrient because they can bind with minerals like iron, calcium, zinc, and magnesium and prevent their absorption to a pretty significant degree, especially if eaten raw, also contributing to nutrient deficiencies. They also disrupt the normal intake of nutrients and interfere with the breakdown and digestion of proteins. The lectin wheat germ agglutinin, which is in gluten, is one of the main contributors to leaky gut. When gluten gets ingested, it gets broken down only partially to gliadin, which then can bind to a special receptor called CXCR3, which stimulates higher levels of zonulin. Higher levels of zonulin wear down the tight junctions in the intestinal barrier, causing leaky gut. On top of this fact, gluten peptides, before they are broken down, can directly damage the intestinal cells, and both of these processes can be amplified if you have celiac disease or non-celiac gluten sensitivity, which are very prevalent in today's society. Gluten has also been shown to significantly impair intestinal barrier function in all humans.
So this graph here demonstrates the intestinal barrier as assessed by something called transepithelial electrical resistance. The higher the line, the better. The top line shows barrier function in celiac intestinal cells that haven't been exposed to gluten. When we expose them to gluten, this happens. And you can see it happens rapidly within 15 minutes. And in people with celiac disease, this increase in intestinal permeability will persist for up to a week. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. It's not only celiacs who are affected by gluten. This top line here is non-celiac cells not exposed to gluten. This one here, non-celiac cells exposed to gluten. There's still a significant impediment to intestinal barrier function. Gluten impairs the intestinal barrier in everybody.
If bread was a staple in the biblical diet, then I don't think it was a very healthy diet at all. So it turns out lectins do exist in animal foods as well, depending on what the animals ate, but it's to a less significant degree, and we can see that the four most detrimental lectins are all plant-based lectins. Very few people will still experience issues with grain-fed animal lectins. If that's the case, you can opt for grass-fed meats instead. But this, in my opinion, just shows the reality of how bad lectins can actually be, especially for sensitive individuals. On the contrary, multiple studies do show that eating a Paleolithic ketogenic diet high in red meat can improve intestinal permeability, which counteracts the lectins in meat. Many of these high lectin foods, even when properly cooked, can still be an issue because they are eaten in abundance. Just one can of beans is 3.5 servings, and some vegans and vegetarians recommend to eat 3 to 4 servings of legumes a day. Forget the lectins, all that fiber alone is going to destroy your gut. What's also interesting is that in terms of the fat storage component of insulin, lectins are far more susceptible to producing consistent lipogenesis, creating and storing fat, significantly more so than just insulin alone. This is a huge concern for those people that are trying to lose weight. While it is true that lectins may have some beneficial roles studied in animals, like fighting cancer and acting as an antioxidant, it comes with the cost of your gut health and becoming sick with other things that are just as bad. Now, unfortunately, our consumption of lectins is substantially growing, with genetic modification of crops tending to select for genes with higher lectins to be more resistant to insects and pesticides. From this point forward, it is only going to get worse. You will never fully understand how bad these phytochemicals are to your individual body until you stop eating them for a prolonged period of time and add them back into your diet after you've healed. The human body has an amazing way of adapting to toxins, so you can't really tell sometimes, but this usually comes at the cost of your long-term health. That's it for Plant Toxins Part 2, guys. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you. Take care of yourself. See you in the next one.